Welcome everyone to my first official music production tutorial ever. Back when I first got into music production, I used to watch tutorial videos constantly. In fact, sometimes I still do. But all those videos helped me out tremendously, and so I thought, maybe it's my turn to give back to the community, help other musicians, and maybe even inspire some people out there. So with this video, I basically recorded myself every step of the way from the very beginning to the very end during the making of a Lofi Hip Hop track. I also decided to create two options for viewing. So I've made one long continuous video that goes from beginning to end, and I've also taken that same video and chopped it up into smaller, easier to digest, like 15 to 20 minute pieces, all combined into a single playlist. So most people will probably gravitate toward that naturally. I wanted to at least provide the option for people who want the whole video in its entirety from the beginning to end, simply because I'm the crazy bastard who for some reason preferred the long continuous videos. This particular track is a track that I made under my moniker Lord Shongo. That is a moniker that I use for Lofi Hip Hop productions. Sometimes I create songs using my SP404, my Tascam 4-track cassette recorder, Ableton, I use Machina, all sorts of things. So in this particular case, I'm going to be using Ableton. Obviously with using a computer, it's not going to be lo-fi, so we have to do certain things that are going to give it the lo-fi aesthetic. One of the first things I do when making lo-fi hip-hop is find a vinyl crackle sound. Now the original sample that we're using does have some crackle in it, but not a whole lot, especially the parts that I want to flip. So what I'm going to do is come over here. I got a little folder. This particular folder has a vinyl crackle sound that I like. So I'm going to drag that in. Now I have Ableton set up to automatically warp clips, so I'm going to shut that off. And that gives me a little bit more of the actual sample to work with. And then in this case, I'll just basically duplicate it a bunch of instances until I have several minutes of it, and that should cover it. I mean, the lo-fi hip-hop songs are not usually 5 minutes long, so if I come here to around the 5-minute mark, then I know I've got plenty. When I listen back, usually I have to EQ these things. Okay, so this particular sample, it has a little a moment here where it's really loud and has this kind of cutoff thing. What I'm going to do is basically cut that little piece off. I might actually end up using it later because it's kind of cool to use as an effect, which I'll show you later. But at the moment, I just kind of want to chop that off right there where that happens. And then this piece right here, the remaining piece, is what I will use as a background crackle. Now I'm just hitting Command D a whole bunch of times to do this. Obviously there's quicker and better ways. Alright, so when we listen back now, we have just straight crackle without that loud, that volume sweep. Okay, so what I want to usually do also is I don't usually keep this at the 0 volume, so we'll bring it down a little bit, as well as use some EQ on there. So I'm going to drop an EQ on. Okay, so this EQ here, generally I just like to take out the low end. Believe it or not, there is a little bit of like low-end rumble and stuff on these vinyl samples usually. By the way, you can find these online all over the place. They have entire sample packs of just vinyl. So usually I'm gonna edit out this low-end stuff. And usually take a little bit of the highs out as well. Just basically kind of just mess around until I find something that I feel I'm comfortable with. I just like to have it to where there's not a lot of there's no low end, and then there's not a lot of like mid lows. I also kind of sweep off some of the highs here because I like to roll them off because, you know, later on I'm going to have hi-hats and different things happening in the song, and I don't want, you know, I want to make sure that this space here is all cleared up for the brighter things in the song. I'm just going to kind of play with this for a second until I find how I like it. Okay, so I've got my EQ here set how I want it. I just kind of brought the dBs down to 19, you know, just fitting this in exactly how I want it into these 8 bars. So that's that. Okay, so I like to usually use some sort of sample. I like to flip samples, but I also like to make my own sounds. For that, I use keyboards, I use synths, I use Machina, I use my electric bass guitar, my electric guitar. So what I do is usually a combination of both of those schools of thought. Not just sample flipping, but also not making the whole beat using all my own sounds. What helps me though sometimes as a starting point is to find a sample that I like and to just kind of draw some ideas from that. In this case, I already picked some things out ahead of time. One that I think I'm going to go with is this. In Ableton, when you click on something in the browser, obviously, for those of you that know, it previews it. For those of you that don't know, yeah, this whole little browser area right here is just amazing and super convenient. So I'm going to bring in this sample here. And as you can see, it is not warped. However, if we're going to be using it in the song and flipping it, I am going to have to warp it. So yeah, I mean, basically, let's kind of listen. I mean, I kind of like this 97 tempo. Lately, for some reason, I've just been doing a lot of music in this tempo. I'm gonna kind of stick to that real quick and see what kind of vibes I can lay down. So I guess this section is gonna be a little bit of a warping tutorial as well. I mean, this is very simple sample to warp, so we're not gonna get super in depth with it, but I will show you a few key things about the warp feature. Hopefully you can learn something as you watch. For those of you that do already know how to warp and already know how to use Ableton, this is gonna be a little bit redundant, so you can just skip it if you want. Okay, so we're gonna warp this sample here. The first step in the process of warping, for those of you that don't know, we need to set the 1. Basically, I'm going to go here to the very beginning of the clip and zoom into the audio. You can see that there's a mark here where Ableton wants to put the 1. Generally, I like to go in a little closer. Some people put the marker here where they see the audio starting. I like to put it somewhere in between where I can see the audio starting and where Ableton wants to put its 1. So somewhere around here is probably where I'd put it, right when you can see the waveform starting to really get larger. So I'm going to double click there, and then I'm going to right click on this marker and go here to set 1 here. Okay, so now that is now telling Ableton that this point is the beginning of the audio clip, and you can see that the 1 actually starts counting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. Now basically just gonna kind of play it and listen to the click track and listen to the sample and see where I need to move things. For this, I'm gonna keep it real simple and make every hit happen on the 1 of each bar. So as you can see, Ableton gives you these little light gray little markers here where it's reading where it believes the 1 is. So usually I just roll with that. If you want to, you can get in real close. You can choose your own. You know, I could go here if I want that to be the beginning. However, I'm just gonna go ahead and go with their suggested warp point. As you can see, this is fairly long. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes to do this process. It's really easy, it's just like a little bit time consuming. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip all of this so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch me do this, and we'll move on to the next part. Alright, so I finished warping this piece. So this is on time, everything's cool, it's just too spread apart. I don't want to chop up a sample and do anything with something that's takes a full 4 beats just for it to hit to the next note. So handy little trick Ableton's made. See these 2 little buttons down here? You got divided by 2 and times 2. So we can either take this arrangement here and divide it by 2, or we can take it and multiply it by 2. Now, I'd rather divide it, because if we divide it, we're cutting it into smaller pieces. So as you can see, now it's playing at double the speed that it used to, which is perfect for what I'm trying to do here. Last thing here is, because this is audio and not a rhythm component, usually when I'm warping audio, just straight audio, I will put it into Complex Pro. Complex Pro will basically keep it in the same quality that it was in before we warped it. So yeah, when I'm dealing with just straight up audio, melodic things usually, then I keep it in Complex Pro. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. Next up, we'll create a drum beat so we can chop the sample up over it.